So we've got a bit of an environmental issue, I guess, with the rain, but hopefully the sound will improve. Can you all hear me if I speak this close to the microphone? Okay, so I will try to stay close to the microphone. So yeah, as the title slide shows, I'm a Fulbright scholar here for another 2 weeks at least. So the project is drawing to a close, but I intend to keep doing interviews. So even after I return home to the USA after a month. And so this is an ongoing project. So anything I say today is really just preliminary. I'm just describing some of our findings. Hopefully all of you have access to this little sample book, which I very hastily put together, copying and pasting some of our interviews that have already been translated. And that gives you a flavor, at least, of some of the themes that come out of this oral history project. So first of all, I would love to thank Yusef Nepal. Is there actually anybody here representing Yusef Nepal from Fulbright? No. Okay. Well, thank you to them anyway, because they gave me the money to do the project. TU Sociology, especially Prem Chalani and Graham Moore. Graham Moore is here in the audience. The Dignity Initiative, so I'd especially like to thank JB Vishwakarma and Rusuna. Are they here today? Or? They should be on the way, and they've been incredibly helpful in giving me links and connections for research purposes. And of course, Ratna Vishwakarma, my research coordinator, and he will speak to you as well for 5 or 10 minutes after I finish and give his own perspective. He'll also be taking questions if you want to ask questions in Nepali, obviously. He may be the person to answer those. Also, my research assistants, Arjun Tani, Abhilasha Sharma, and Krishna Gimri, who is here. One of whom is here today. Thank you very much, Krishna. And my translators, neither of whom are here today, Prajwal Tuladar and Adash Mahata. And of course, my expert respondents, Deepak Gyawali, Sujeev Saki, Tilak Padak, and many other journalists and think tank members who've been helpful in guiding some of the ideas. Okay, so this is primarily an oral history project, but then it turned into an extra element as well. So this is a photo of one of our oral history. I think was this in maybe Lumbini province, or maybe maybe it was in Malaysia.
Malaysia.
This is a Malaysian interview, okay. And so, what was the project? Well, basically, we interviewed 90 senior citizens, meaning people around 60 plus, across Nepal, trying to get a range demographically in terms of location, demographic, caste, ethnic characteristics, which I will talk about shortly. And then secondly, based on what people were saying, we could call it a diagnosis of the symptoms revealed in the oral history. And I talk about the particization of society and economy in Nepal, which I think for most people who live in Nepal is a pretty familiar idea, but which hasn't really been expounded on in political science or sociology. So the theoretical value of a project like this is that, well, firstly, I'm kind of skeptical of political science's conceptualizations of democratic success. You may have heard terms such as consolidation, semi-consolidation, democratic transition, democratic backsliding. Most of these terms, which come from point scores made by organizations like Freedom House, Polity, VDEM, are based on easily collectible data which can be turned into a number, out of 10, out of 5, out of 20, out of 100, right? So for example, things like incumbency. Do parties change? Is there turnover of parties? Are there free and fair elections? Is there a right, legal right to stand for election? Is there some reasonable amount of representativity in the parliament? Freedom of the press. How many journalists are attacked or murdered every year? These are the kind of criteria they use. According to these criteria, Nepal's democracy is not doing too badly at all. For example, I think Polity gives Nepal an 8 out of 10 score, which is on a par with South Korea and the United States. Now, obviously, the United States is not necessarily doing very well at the moment, but nevertheless, 8 out of 10 somehow doesn't seem in keeping with the subjective opinions that I encounter when we're doing this project. So something is wrong with these criteria, and the problem is just that, you know, these are things that are easy to collect numbers. They don't give you a sense qualitatively of the problems with a democratic system. I suspect that is true for many countries in the global south, which is why I'm very skeptical of all of these numbers that come out of these organizations. But in Nepal, where politics is so personal, where you still have a very strong legacy of patron-client and feudal relationships, I think these numbers are fairly ineffective. So let me tell you something empirically about what we did. We did 90 interviews we may do more, make it up to 100, with interviewees aged between, I think, 57 and 92. We went to 6 provinces. The only one we haven't been to yet is Far West. What's the name of the Far Western province? Yeah. So maybe we'll get there. 17 locations, and in each location we interviewed maybe 5 to 7 people, trying to get variety of demographics within each of the 17 locations, so that we would be getting different points of view, obviously, from upper caste, lower caste. That's the idea. Here is a rough map. Sorry about the horrible blue dots. Oh, they're purple when I look it up there. Okay. So these are the locations. You can see we've tried to focus on main population centers to some extent, so we're not looking for very remote locations. We're trying to find the median Nepali person, the typical Nepali person, but also with enough variety of location and demographics to give us some kind of representativity. 90 people is not a survey, it's not a scientific survey, so it's impossible to achieve a kind of scientific validity of representation. But we tried our best using subjective criteria to look for a representative sample. And we asked the people about, these were open-ended questions. We asked them, first of all, obviously their basic demographics, their life story, their life history. This often took up to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then we asked them to put that in the context of different eras that they had lived through. Remember, these are senior citizens. Many of them even have memories going back to the Rana era, but the Panchayat, the first democratic era, the Civil War era, and then the Republican era up to the present. We asked them to tell us open-ended questions, right? Their relationship to political parties, to leaders, the provision of services from local government. Who did they go to if they had a problem? What was their relationship like with party leaders locally? How did they decide to vote? Who gave them advice on how to vote? What kind of incentives were they given when it came time to vote? And also, overall, more philosophical, I guess, questions about their view of political change. At the end of the interview, we asked them, could you tell us your opinion of the different political systems you've lived through? What were the pluses and minuses of them? All of this was open-ended. There were no fixed, closed questions. So we were trying to let them expound as best they can on their ideas. Let me give you some data, as far as I can give it. Again, this is very preliminary because we haven't even been through all of the interviews. This is the ethnic or caste breakdown of the oral histories. Starting from 12 o'clock and moving clockwise, the purple segment is caste Hindu, so basically Brahmin and Kshetri. The brown segment is Janajati. The green segment is Newa. The blue segment is Dalit. The purple segment is Muslim, and the light green segment is Thari. So pretty good representation based on Nepal's demographics, but we've deliberately overrepresented Dalits, as that was kind of part of the intention of the project. Between the hills and the Tarai. So the purple segment is Tarai, the brown segment is hills. Given the cohort, given the generation that we're talking to, that's a reasonable approximation of the population sort of balance during their lifetimes. Rural, urban, the purple section is urban, the brown section is rural. Again, there's a lot of ambiguity in how you define urban or rural. Gender was disappointing in a sense. Yes, there's an overwhelming majority, about 70% of male over female. And again, this is because of the cohort, because of the age group we're talking to, that it just was harder to find females who are willing to talk about political and social issues. So again, that could be a flaw in our research design. That's just a fact. Education level using, and used as a proxy for socioeconomic status. As you can see, about 60% of our respondents have no formal education. And then the other sections reflect classes 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 12, and higher education. So those numbers probably skew towards more educated, given the age cohort we're dealing with. Okay, so I would like to talk you through some of the themes that emerged from the oral histories. Do you all have access to this document, which I handed around, which is samples from the oral histories? You're not going to read every single one, obviously, but you can take them away and have a look yourself. So I divided this up into thematic sections. Is everybody able to see the samples? Okay, we'll get a bit more range there. So I start with the simplest section, which is the one you'd expect to see, negative memories of the panchayat. So if you look on pages 1 and 2, sample number 2, they captured the whole community. They captured the whole area. They gave us a lot, made us work for free a lot. We were proposed or promised that we would not work for free. So these kind of schools were quite typical in the Chautari, in the Madhesh. This is where the panchayat system overlapped directly with feudal systems of oppression. So again, this is quite familiar. This is not surprising. And we have many examples of this. Another one, number 3. From a Madhesh community, we turn over to page 2. Now we remember something. I think that's better than something else. So on page 2, this is sample number 3. Did you involve in any fight or raise? This is in the middle of the sample. Did you involve in any fight or raise your voice against the rule of Kathmandu and the panchayat system? No, we were scared. He was very powerful. The whole district was his playground. He made the Brother Panchayat whatever he wanted. Nobody dared to raise their opinions against his decisions. Why was that? Yes, he was very intimidating and powerful, so nobody dared. So this is where the Brother Panchayat was chosen by local feudal landlords, and with results that you can imagine. Okay, let's move on to people's positive assessments, the kind of language they use to describe democracy when they're comparing it with the panchayat. So samples number 3 to 7 in the booklet which I gave you. I'm not going to read through all of those, but I'm just going to summarize some of what they said. The themes that kept coming up. Free speech was mentioned a few times, less than you would expect, but it was mentioned. Due process. So for example, in sample number 5, a former policeman describes how during the panchayat, every prosecution had to go through the local Brahmin panchayat, but after the panchayat, they were able to follow rules. So this is a basic rule of law argument about the benefits of democracy. Competitive competition between parties, reducing corruption. This was actually very rare in the interviews. So maybe just once somebody mentioned competition between parties, reducing corruption. Many of the interviewees mentioned the pension, basic state pension, which was introduced, when was it, about 1996? So that came up many, many times. And also general descriptions of development. So people are lumping together democracy with roads, education, access to jobs overseas, general developmental things, which in their minds seem to go together with democracy. So again, you can have a look through those later on. I would say quantitatively, they were not that common because most people were quite critical of the democratic system. But nevertheless, those, I would say the pension, the state pension was the thing that the vast majority of people mentioned when we asked them, what are the benefits you got from this democratic system. So it's a distributional thing that people focus on. And again, development which may or may not be connected to democracy, things like growth of schools and roads. Okay, so this is all very familiar. Let's get into the more interesting stuff, which is when people start to say positive things about the panchayat and then use the panchayat as a kind of critique of democracy. So using their conception of the panchayat to critique current multi-party democracy. So if you look at page 4 of the sample sheet, people remembered elements of the panchayat that evoke community, mutual help, and discipline. So Dhammakari is one. This is a system where current panchayat would save rice for times of crisis, right? So 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people mentioned this. Jana Samadhan, so collective work, was mentioned almost entirely positively. This is when the private panchayat would gather people to try to do some basic development work, like building a temple, building a road, building a school. And in general terms, discipline, anushasana. So the idea that the private panchayat was somebody who brought a kind of social discipline to society. This was mentioned usually in a positive sense. So I'll read you part of number 10, from the Gavajani Mail, page 66, in both groups, on page 5. This is the second part of it. The committee formed from private panchayat and other officials used to rule the villages. They were appointed for and maintained the discipline within those villages. They were also involved in being a moral police and dictated how people were doing in society. What are the problems? What are the failings? The solution was made on the discussions, and people in those times felt like they were cared for. So this is a theme that emerges many, many times. Again, I can't unfortunately give you a quantitative breakdown, but it's very common, much more common than the positive statements about democracy. Finally, we have a section of, I would label it radical panchayat, and these are memories on page 5 and 6 of times when the private panchayat took action against caste discrimination. One of these periods started after 1962 with the second Mulaki, and then the other one in the 1970s with the Gao Parka campaign. So I'll read you a little bit of that. If you look at number 11, this is a Dalit Mail talking about life in Nyamdi, in the hills, Western Hills, in the 1960s. And he's complaining obviously that because being a bishop government, they're making statues which go in the temple, but they're not allowed to enter the temple. And then they hold a feast, and the Brahman panchayat presides over this joint caste feast. So if you look at the second paragraph of number 11, we went to the forest together. With them, we started cooking a goat. We prepared it together, but what old man did not eat? Brahman panchayat and deputy Brahman panchayat were present. They asked for any work that we could do. Then they told us to cut the goat and cook it. Our brothers cut the goat and started grilling it on fire. There was an old man of the Chautari caste who shouted what was happening. Then the Brahman panchayat replied, "This is a picnic." The old man was angry, he did not speak a word. Then we all stayed together and made songs and dances. This is what happened. So this is again, a familiar theme. It comes up 6 or 7 times in the interviews we did, where in some areas, not in the Terai, but in the hills at least, there were progressive Brahman panchayats who did this kind of anti-discrimination work. So again, I think that's a part of history that's a little bit underrepresented. So we're adding this a little bit of nuance. Okay. Let's take a little. How are we doing for time? Yes. So, the next section, grassroots political theory. This might be one of the more interesting things that came out of this study. So these are interviews 14 through 20 in the booklet. And this is where people are giving, I think, quite interesting theoretical analyses of the differences between democracy and the panchayat in ways that were unexpected did, I think, to us, to me, as a researcher. So, for example, if you look at number 14, well, this person was a former brown puncher, so, you know, you can decide how to take his bullets. Halfway through number 14, he says, yes, there were no rights or access in the panchayat. The people didn't have human rights. But there was religion and there was help. Right? So he's contrasting a kind of liberal political theory, which is obviously good. He's praising that in a way, that it's good to have free speech, it's good to have rights, but at the same time we seem to sacrifice what he calls religion and help. Help, I think, referring to things like Jana Samadeh, right? The collective work. If you look at number 15 on page 7, I'll read a little bit of this. So what do you mean by a culture in the panchayat system? She says at present there is no culture as there was during the panchayat. At that time people were afraid and anyone was not killed randomly. Nowadays killing people is easy. If you look at politics, all parties think that their party is the largest and will protect them if they are criminals. In the past there was fear that the king would take action. They feared that the panchayat people would do something. At that time, there were a lot of problems, but there was culture and justice. At that time, there was culture and justice. Yes, nowadays they do whatever they want. Now there is happiness, but no wealth. And this is slightly confusing or complex theme that comes up in quite a lot of the interviews. People saying that yes, people have material things now, but somehow something spiritually or communally has been lost. And they associate this with a kind of rampant, extreme individualism, which they see in Nepal's current multi-party democracy. People often use religious language to describe this. For example, number 17 on page 7, the curse of Sati in Nepal. Has anybody heard of the curse of Sati? So again, this is quite an appropriate theme in the sense that a good minister from Kirtipur was executed for being too effective because he cared too much about the public good. His wife was forced to commit sati, and on her death, on her funeral pyre, she cursed Nepal forever, right? So you can almost make a book about politics in Nepal called The Curse of Sati, right? It's like people being punished for being public spirited. A lot of people, if you look at page 8, refer to the Kali Yuga, the age of Kali. So here, number 18, Kali has almost lived her life. There's a religious dimension in these older people's critiques of current multi-party democracy. Some of them referring to Hindu themes of the various ages and epochs. I'll read you some of number 19, which is kind of poetic and interesting. So this is from a Czech email in rural Lumbini province. This is on page 8. We played with democracy. The panchayat is a lake where we swim. We did not like it, so then we went to play in democracy. But democracy became cheap. Only the different things are valued and others are not. You value gold. You can get a lot of money with 1 puller of gold. But 1 kilogram of cotton is more useful than gold. Instead of gold, you can also wear flowers. Flower is not something to eat, it is to behold. Which I think is quite clever. So he's, again, I think the aim of what he's trying to say is a critique of materialism, which is associated with multi-party democracy, a particized society in which leaders are seen to be pursuing their own good rather than the collective good. And he's expressing it in that way. And then he ended that little speech talking about how Doiga Doiga was his friend during the period of the Jan Andolan in the 1980s. And then when he saw him 5-6 years later, he ignored it. So Doiga did not recognize me. We were together during the movement, right? So this is some local leader, local Congress activist, but just completely ignored. And that was something that came up many, many times from these people. Okay, then, I don't want to get completely involved. I think we've still got enough time to talk a little bit about these. So, I'll just summarize very briefly. Numbers 21 to 26 is much more down-to-earth stuff. These are the kind of petty annoyances, problems with corrupt officials, the fact that people can't get basic services, especially certificates of all kinds, land measurement, all of the petty annoyances of bureaucracy, and the idea which many of them express is that if you don't have party connections, you can't do anything about those things. There's a nice one, number 23, on page 9. We asked this lady, is there a motorable road in your village? Yes, there is. The house is about to collapse. My house is about to collapse because of the dozer. The ward chairman does not care if I tell him to build a wall. It is on the verge of collapse. If you went there, I would have shown you. It is only supported by a tree. That much road was unnecessary and has broken the wall. You've requested them to build a wall? Yes, I did. What did they say? They don't care. You have to tell them because if there's erosion during the monsoon, the house will collapse. When I asked Madam McLeod that you have to build a wall, what would I do if there was erosion? He says nothing will happen. I feel angry. But now there is someone else. She's referring to the new board chairperson. Tamang Noiga. Have you told him also? Yes, I told him. Aunt Lada, Betwal, and Tamang come to ask you for the votes. They came when I went to Zedai's house, but they did not come to my house. They were showing which sign to vote for on a piece of paper. So this refers to dozer democracy. The idea which Tilak Patak, the investigative journalist, has mentioned to me that half of board chairpersons are also bulldozer operatives. So they're building roads with their favorite contractors. This poor lady's house was a victim of that. And of course they don't listen. She's not part of the inner network. Her voice doesn't get heard. Instead they just come around at election time telling people which sign to vote for. And the other, we probably don't have time to go through a lot of the others. They reveal pretty similar things. So these are unhappy encounters with government. There's a very interesting one actually, I don't have time to read through it now, but number 26 is from a Sukambasi community. This is page 11 in Barakagar, and this is a kind of a brief summary of it, but basically taking us through the history of that Sukambasi community from the Rana period right up to contemporary multi-party democracy, and basically a deep disappointment. A sense that actually, in some ways, the panchayat was better for that community than multi-party democracy. Because yes, legally they may have more rights, but the landlords have simply become party leaders and they don't listen at all. Whereas at least during the panchayat, there was some basic provision of services and welfare to that community. So that one's worth looking at. 27 to 30. I label this the party machine, and here I've collected interviews with people who wanted to do public service or wanted to get involved in politics. They had a very strong record in many cases of activism, maybe some of them were even underground during the pro-democracy protests in the 1980s. But then when it came time to try to seek office, they were sidelined. And according to them, they were sidelined mainly because they were too popular in the local area. So they were replaced with people from the party machine because having a popular following made them dangerous to that party machine. Also, these people talked about money, as you'd expect. The amount of money you need to put down in order to become a board chairperson, for example. If you look at number 29, this is a Brahmin female from rural Sindh project who was involved in politics. She ran for office a few times. She was in Raprapa, actually. But the same stories we hear from all of the other parties. Sometimes I feel that the party workers are the ones that make the politicians engage in corruption. This is because they ask us, the lower level party workers, to spend money in so-and-so places. In other words, basically, to buy votes. But we can't arrange it, as we don't have ancestral property. Then people sell their gold or engage in illegal activities. Due to this, the country is going bankrupt. So her impression was that because she wasn't rich, even though she was popular locally, and her husband was actually killed during the Civil War, so she had a local reputation, she didn't have the money to put down to get into the party system. So some of you will see, that's kind of a little bit like a mafia, right? where if you want to get into a local gang or a mafia, you have to put money down on the street. I think that's the expression they use to begin with. And then you can climb up the hierarchy and you can gain the rewards. But if you don't have that money to put down initially, you're not going to get into the system. Yeah, number 30, again, I don't have time to go through that long sample, but it's a very interesting one. I'd strongly recommend having a look at number 30. This is from a Vaishya Madesi male, aged 82. There was also a focus group in rural Madhesh. And again, this was an interesting one because he was comparing and contrasting a very extreme oppression that occurred during the Panchayat with democracy. If you look at page 14, a few lines down where I put it in bold, we used to have one Hem Bahadur back in the days, but now we have hundreds like him. So this was the Pranab Pancha who was also a landlord. Now we have hundreds like him. Everybody is king in their own minds. So many political leaders like Matrina Prasad Yadav, Ram Kumar Yadav, etc. They came and won, but nobody did anything for us. They just fill up their pockets and make their sons and brothers a mayor or ward chairperson. How much money do they spend to be ward chairperson? Usually 25, 30 lakhs. But this time the elected UML candidate spent 50 lakhs. You've got to ask, why are they spending that? Very obviously they expect a return on that 50 lakhs, right? What about the post of mayor? Around 4 to 5 crore. So after winning, they will just try to secure their spent money? Yes, they will obviously get their money back. So the development doesn't fall into their priority. So this is again a very familiar story. And it's interesting because it's coming from somebody who experienced very horrible oppression during the Panchayat. So even though maybe it's obviously preferable, this is seen as morally equivalent. And yeah, just the many kings trope or narrative comes up again and again. I was actually going to ask, I don't know if it's a political slogan, there was one king and now there's many kings. Does anybody know if a political party has used that slogan? In which case that's interesting because it's spontaneous, right? It's people of all different castes, all different locations who say this. And if it's not coming from like a political party or some sort of media, then it's quite interesting because it suggests it's a sort of organic response to what people are experiencing. The idea that there was one king and now there's at least 10 people out of the 90 we interviewed used that trope. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna cut it short here. The rest of the sample sheet, have a look through it. The idea of discipline in society was an interesting one, actually number 34, where somebody tried to improve standards at the local secondary school, but was blocked by coalitions of parties, activists, who didn't want him interfering in the system because the parties appoint people to posts, and they don't want somebody from outside coming in and telling them to improve standards in the school. Then finally, I say unique identities and places. The one exception to everything we looked at was Bhaktapur, so that's not really surprising. And in Bhaktapur, people didn't even want to talk about politics. There was a kind of consensus that you shouldn't talk to outsiders, but there seemed to be, a great deal of satisfaction with the system that existed, except for those people who felt that Bhaktapur was like North Korea, as some people said. But in terms of service provision, they were quite happy. Interesting narratives from some Muslim respondents who were very strongly pro-Panchayat. And again, this may be an age issue. I've spoken to other Muslim activists who were skeptical. But amongst the older Muslims, there was a strong support for the monarchy and for the Panchayat, and the feeling that democratic politics had opened them up to violence and had made their position more fragile. Finally, female respondents, a typical one, number 38, is where a lot of the older female respondents were voting based on what they were told to vote by male family members. So that is a gender dimension, but unfortunately it also means it's harder to get this kind of political social narratives out of some of our people, not by any means the majority, but some of the female respondents who we spoke to. So anyway, take this away, have a look at it. You might find it interesting, and this is just a preliminary sample that I very rapidly put together from maybe 50 interviews that have been translated. There's still 40 that need to be translated, and I've only read through them once. What can we do quantitatively with this material? I think you've got 90 people. You can look by ethnicity, gender, location, and see what kind of memes, tropes, themes come up, and you can generate some sort of basic statistical, just descriptive statistics, seeing whether there are particular themes that certain groups are more likely to talk about. I would say you could develop clusters, types of individuals, the ambivalent Democrat, the disaffected cynic, the moral critic, and the disappointed activist. These are some types that seem to come up again and again in the interviews. Okay, so how to explain this? We're doing okay for time. Is it an artifact of age? This is something that Nick Langton at Youssef suggested to me. He said, well, maybe these are just grumpy old people who are, dissatisfied with democracy. I would say probably not. We're doing a survey with younger people as a kind of counterpoint. My impression is a big difference is that younger people are much less likely to use moral language when criticizing democracy. The ones that I've seen and talked to, I would put them into two groups, nihilists and assimilators. So nihilists, people who have given up completely on Nepali politics. As one person said, it's not even funny. I'd rather watch American debates because Nepali politics isn't even humorous, right? This is a typical response. And assimilators are people, obviously, who want to get into professions and realize they have to align with the political party or else it's going to be very difficult for them to do it. So I would say negative associations with multi-party democracy, but in a different way, with less moral language. Okay, so very briefly, it shouldn't be brief. Politicization is a topic that is rarely mentioned in political science. You'll find very few books or articles that even use the term. I think the only time I've seen it used is in a very obscure article in an obscure journal. And I think political sociology is needed, field work, gathering information, to try to get a sense of what is happening in terms of politicization. So, to briefly define it, the penetration of political parties into many spheres of civil society and economy outside of the political sphere. And this is a pervasive problem in Nepal, across many dimensions. There are people in this room who are working on some of these dimensions now. Obviously, Mr. Gyawati, Ramguram at CU at Kathmandu University is also doing research in this area. We have public sector management, real estate, the contractor business, secondary education, higher education, the civil service, transportation, industry, social movements, and NGOs, that's a controversial topic, transitional justice, and diplomacy. In all of these areas, we see particization of society. If we were to generate a pyramid of particization in Nepal, in which the middle is particized, and the bottom and the top are less particized, you have small tea shops and bike repair shops at the bottom, where parties are not really very interested, they don't get much out of that. The middle sector, the contractors, the bus syndicates, the universities, the schools, the NGOs, the management committees, where parties are very interested in having those posts. And then maybe at the top, international capital, Samsung, Pepsi, right, where they just can't go, right? They can't intimidate those people. UN system, I've said, but other people have said to me that's not correct, because when the UN directors come to choose NGOs as their partner organizations, parties are very interested in which organizations they choose. So maybe within the UN, parties can't go, but in terms of the partners they choose, they certainly can. This matters, why? Because, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, it has consequences for social equality. The particized middle impacts lower income people and middle class people far more than wealthy people on 2 lakh plus a month. Those people escape the party system, they're cynical about it, but they're not really affected by it. Particization also means the de facto exclusion of marginalized groups, even if they have de jure representation. So how many contractors are Dalit or female? In these back rooms where real decisions are made, they're very male, probably, not exclusively upper caste, but certainly not lower caste. So there's a sociological dimension to the shadow politics that goes on in Nepal where real decisions are made. And there's an economic, political economy dimension as well. It's anti-developmental, as Sujib Saki has pointed out many times in his books. It leads to a rentier economy, and it discourages economies of scale. If we go back to that pyramid, if you want to move up from the bottom to the middle section, you have to start making political connections. This is one reason why you see so many small businesses in Nepal, right? Because they can't move up. Because to do so requires politics, not just efficiency. Okay, so we are getting close to our time limit. I was going to give you a micro example of partisanization, but I don't think I'm going to do that. We don't really have time. Instead, I'm going to hand over to Ratna PK, my research coordinator, and he's going to say some words about the project from his point of view, because he's been there for even more interviews than I was. So, Ratna, would you like to actually take a seat? So you can speak.
धेरै कुराहरू जोड्ने भइसक्नु भयो म अलिकति मेरो आफ्नो रिसर्च कोअर्डिनेटरमा काम गरिरहेको चर्चा गर्छु सुन्नुहुन्छ नि हामीले इन्टरभ्युजहरूको भेराइटी चाहिँ हाम्रो कमन पिपुलहरू बढी अनि माथिल्लो लेभल भनिने जमातसँग पनि हामीले केही कुरा गरिरहेका थियौँ अब माथिबाट म तल छिर्छु उनीहरूको कुरा तल्लोसँग म्याच हुन्न उनीहरू भन्छन् गणतन्त्र सबैभन्दा उत्कृष्ट यस कारणले कि पञ्चायतसँग तुलना गर्दै वाराणा कालसँग तुलना गर्दै यसले सङ्घीयता समानुपातिक यसले चाहिँ प्रेस फ्रिडम यसले दलित जनजाति महिलाको भोइसहरूलाई सुन्न सक्ने स्थानमा यस्तै कुराहरू उहाँहरू गर्नुहुन्छ अब यसले अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय रोजगारीका अवसरहरू पनि खुला गरेको छ यसले रोडहरू चाहिँ विस्तार गरेको छ यसले चाहिँ छुवाछुत विभेदलाई कम गरेको छ यसले संसार क्षेत्रमा चाहिँ ठुलो फड्को मारेको छ यस्तै कुराहरू माथिल्लो लेभलको कुरा भयो अब यो कुरा गरिरहँदाखेरि हामीले तल्लो लेभलका सामान्य जनताहरूलाई सोधिरहँदाखेरि उहाँहरूको अपेक्षा धेरै ठुलो छैन अधिकांशको उहाँहरूको आर्थिक क्षेत्रमा के भन्नुहुन्छ भने हो यो अहिलेको प्रजातन्त्रले हामीलाई वैदेशिक रोजगारको निमित्त चाहिँ एउटा ठुलो बाटो खुलेको छ आय आर्जनको निमित्त मेरुदण्डले यतिखेर हाम्रो यही नै हो हामी सर्वे गरिरहँदाखेरि लगभग प्रत्येक घरबाट मान्छेहरू चाहिँ विदेश गएको गाउँघरतिर विदेश गएको हामीले पायौँ यो ओपन मार्केटको स्थिति चाहिँ यो डेमोक्रेसीबाट सिर्जना गरेको हो भने उहाँहरूको बुझाइ छ तर उहाँहरूको कृषि क्षेत्रमा हामीले के पायौँ मल पाउँदैनौँ भनेको टाइममा डिभिजन पाउँदैनौँ सिँचाइको निमित्त हामी चाहिँ कुलोको निमित्त माग गर्न जान्छौँ त्यो पाउँदैनौँ उद्योग धन्दाहरू जो हिजो थिए आज सबै बन्द भएको छन् मूलतः तराई क्षेत्रमा हामीले सोधिरहँदाखेरि पहिला हामी जुट मिलमा काम गरेर जान्थ्यौँ अहिले जुट मिल चाहिँ पार्टी भनेर चाहिँ सिद्धिएका छन् उहाँको कुरा यो छ अनि यहाँ हामीले सौलित कर्जाको निमित्त माग गर्न जाँदाखेरि कागजी प्रक्रिया यति बनाइन्छ हामी त्यो पुरा गर्नै सक्दैनौँ कतिसम्म उनीहरू भन्छन् भने हामीले एप्लाई त गरेको हौँ सहुलियत ऋण भन्ने हामीलाई थाहा छैन अधिकांश हामीलाई चाहिँ यो सामान्य लोन दियो भनेर भन्दाखेरि ब्याङ्कहरूले हामीलाई दिँदैन ब्याङ्कमा हाम्रो पहुँच छैन भन्छ पेसाको आधुनिकीकरण पेसामा बाँचिरहेका दलित समुदायहरूको निमित्त आफ्नो उहाँहरूले चाहिँ आफ्नो यो गाउँपालिका नगरपालिकामा एप्रोच गर्दाखेरिसम्म उनीहरूले चाहिँ सानो नेतादेखि ठुलो नेतासँग एप्रोच गर्दाखेरि केही नपाएको गुनासो उनीहरू चाहिँ आफू गर्दै थिए आर्थिक क्षेत्रमा राजनैतिक क्षेत्रमा उनीहरू अधिकांशको चाहिँ आफ्नै नेता आफ्नै वार्ड अध्यक्ष उनीहरूका नातागोता गाउँपालिकाको वडा अध्यक्षहरू का आफन्तहरू नगरपालिकाका आफन्तहरू पस्याउने मात्रै काम गरेका छन् अनि हामी कुनै काम लिएर गयो भने पनि हामीलाई यो भएन त्यो भएन भनेर ब्युरोक्राटले त्यतिको दुःख दिने आसेपासेले त्यतिकै दुःख दिने के अवसर आयो भने त हाम्रोमा केही पनि आएको छैन सुशासनको सवालमा चाहिँ हामीले कुशासन पाइरहेको छौँ भने जस्तो उहाँहरूको अलिक नेगेटिभ एटिट्युड चाहिँ उहाँहरूले प्रस्तुत गरिदिनु सबै चोरहरू सबै भ्रष्ट हो हाम्रो लागि को छ गाउँमा एकचोटि चुनावको बेलामा आउनुहुन्छ उहाँहरू त्यस पछाडि भने फर्केर आउनुभएको छैन अहिलेसम्म यो किसिमको जालमा चाहिँ हामीले पाएका थियौँ उहाँहरूको अपेक्षा शिक्षाको सवालमा चाहिँ हाम्रो बच्चा बच्चीहरू पढ्न पाएदेखि हुन्थ्यो सर्वसुलभ होइन अलिकति फी कम गरेर हामीले प्राइभेट बोर्डिङ स्कुलहरूमा त पढ्न सक्दैनौँ यही स्कुलमा पनि अलिक होस्टेलसहित गरिब बालबालिकाहरूको निमित्त त्यस्तो भइदिएदेखि हुन्थ्यो फीहरू कम भइदिएदेखि हुन्थ्यो टिचरहरूले चाहिँ गुणस्तरीय शिक्षा दिए हुन्थ्यो यो छ उहाँहरूको अब त्यही चिज पनि त्यहीँको लोकल लेभलका एलिटहरूको अब बोर्डिङ स्कुलहरू गाउँसम्म पुगेको छ लोकल लेभल इभन हेड मास्टर इभन त्यहाँको टिचरहरूले चाहिँ प्राइभेट स्कुलमा पढाइरहेको र आफ्नो बच्चाहरू चाहिँ गभर्मेन्ट स्कुलमा पढाएको गभर्मेन्ट स्कुलमा पढाउँदाखेरि भनेको क्वालिटीमा चाहिँ कस्तो छैन उहाँहरूको त्यो बुझाइ छ अब शिक्षा क्षेत्रमा किन यस्तो भइरहेको छ भनेर सामान्य मान्छेलाई सोद्धाखेरि उहाँहरू भन्नुहुन्छ सरहरू खासै राजनीतिमा हिँड्नुहुन्छ, राजनीतिक पार्टीको झन्डाहरू बोकेर हिँड्नुहुन्छ, हाम्रो बालबच्चाहरूको निमित्त भन्दा पनि नेताहरूको पछाडि चाहिँ उहाँहरू लागेको हामी पाउँछौँ। त्यस कारणले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ यो अवस्था भएको कि उहाँहरूको बुझाइ थियो। बाहिर गयो अहिलेको एसएलसी एसए रिजल्ट पनि भर्खर ब्रेकआउट भएको छ होइन, यसले पनि अलिकति इम्प्लिकेसन उहाँहरूको भनाइसँग ताजा मिल्छ जस्तो मलाई लाग्छ। उहाँहरू भौतिक पूर्वाधारको सवालमा चाहिँ ठुलै विकास भएको उहाँहरू अनुभूति गर्नुहुन्छ। रोडहरू पुगेको छ, ठुलो ठुलो महलहरू बनेको छ, गाउँपालिका हेर्नुहोस्, वडापालिका हेर्नुहोस्, हाम्रो होइन यत्रो भवनहरू छ, तर हामीले के पायौँ भन्ने उहाँहरूको प्रश्न चाहिँ यो छ। अब उहाँहरूको यो अपेक्षाहरूलाई चाहिँ अहिलेको करेन्ट होइन यो उन्नत भनेको डेमोक्रेसीले किन स्वीकार्न सकेन होला भनेर मेरो आफ्नो अब्जर्भेसन लगाएको अलिकति एनालाइसिस जस्तो पनि अलिकति केस स्टडी चाहिँ अलिकति जोड्छु। पञ्चायतको कुरा होइन, रिचर्डले अहिलेको डेमोक्रेसी तुलना गरेर पञ्चायती डेमोक्रेसीको कुरा अलिकति गर्नुभयो। म त्यतातिर पढ्न पञ्चायतका केही राम्राहरू पनि नोटेड छन् हाम्रो एनजिबीमा, सँगसँगै पञ्चायतका खराब चिजहरू पनि छन्। र यो उन्नत भनेको अहिलेदेखिको गणतान्त्रिक जसले अलिकति फ्री स्पेस चाहिँ बढी सिर्जना गरेको छ, तर राजनीतिक आर्थिक सामाजिक रूपमा चाहिँ पिनमा रहेका वर्गको आर्थिक सामाजिक रूपान्तरणमा किन यो पुग्न सकेन भन्ने चाहिँ म कुरा राख्न चाहन्छु। यो चाहिँ अलिकति उहाँहरूको बुझाइअनुसार नेतृत्व चाहिँ अलिक बढी भनौँ न आफ्नो पार्टीको गुट, आफ्नो नाता, आफ्नो छोरा, आफ्नो छोरी अनि पैसा आउने, जस्तै भौतिक पूर्वाधारमा पैसा आउँछ नि, रोड खन्नको निमित्त, ठुलो बिल्डिङ बनाउनुको निमित्त, यस्तो कर्ममा बढी लागे होइन। अब हामीले ट्याक्कै करोड लाख भ्रष्टाचार गरेको हामीलाई थाहा छैन, सायद बिल मिलाएर खान्छौँ कि त्यो पनि हामीलाई थाहा छैन, तर उनीहरूको फोकस त्यता हुन्छ। हामी मल विभाजन पाएका छैनौँ, हामीले सामाजिक न्यायका कुराहरू गरिरहेका छौँ, शिक्षाको कुरा गरिरहेका छौँ, स्वास्थ्य सरसुलभ पाए भनिरहेका छौँ, त्यतातिर ध्यानै छैन। उनीहरूको फोकस चाहिँ बढी यो भौतिक पूर्वाधारहरूसँग बढी छ। त्यस कारणले गर्दा हाम्रो चाहिँ मुद्दा ओझेलमा परेको छ भन्छ। एउटा इन्ट्रेस्टिङ छ, तपाईँको पार्टीले त एक हिसाबले उत्पादन ब्रिगेड नै होइन कसले अब चाहिँ आर्थिक समृद्धिको बाटोमा जानुपर्छ भनेर चाहिँ भनेको थियो। अनि तपाईँ त्यो पोजिसनमा हुनुहुन्छ, तपाईँले चाहिँ किन यसको प्याकेजको निमित्त ओकालत गर्नुभएको तपाईँहरूको पार्टी सरकारको स्थानीय स्तरमा भनेर मैले सोधिरहँदाखेरि म नाम भन्दिनँ, वाइसिएलको अलिकति जिम्मेवारी व्यक्ति दाइ करिब 1 करोड बेसी पैसा छुट्याइयो उत्पादनको निमित्त भनेर मैले साथीको भेला राखेँ। त्यो भेलामा चाहिँ ल के गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हाम्रो उत्पादकत्व बढ्छ त यो गाउँमा होइन, गरौँ न साथी, युवा साथीहरू विदेश नै किन जानु पऱ्यो भनेर भन्दा हामीलाई 1 करोडमा बरु 4 करोड थपेर 5 करोड दिनुहोस् अनि 10-12वटा चाहिँ पेटी टिकाको काम दिनुहोस्, हामी त्यही काम गर्छौँ भनेर त्यो उत्तर आयो। उत्पादनतिर मान्छेको चासै छैन भनेर त्यो भाइले चाहिँ मलाई उत्तर दिनुभएको थियो। अनि उहाँले यो पनि गुनासो गर्नुभयो, पार्टीप्रति उहाँ वफादार हुनुहुन्छ, सँगसँगै यस्तो किन भयो होला भन्दा उहाँको एनालाइसिस चाहिँ माथिदेखि पनि बिग्रिएको छ दाइ होइन। अब हाम्रै कमरेडलाई चाहिँ किन ठेकदारको संरचना होइन घरमा बस्नु पऱ्यो होला, हाम्रै साथीहरू ठेकदारको लाइसेन्स लिएर किन काम गर्नु पऱ्यो होला। अनि त्यो इम्प्लिकेसन चाहिँ तलसम्म परेको छ। अहिले युवा साथीहरू चाहिँ ठेक्का पट्टामा बढी ज्यादा रमना खोजिरहेका छन्, यता उत्पादनतिर छैनन् भने उसको इक्जाम्पल थियो। अर्को चाहिँ यो पोलिटिकल इम्पावरको सवालमा चाहिँ निर्वाचन प्रणाली यति महँगो भयो। अहिले उहाँले भन्नुभएको थियो, तिलक पाठकले यसलाई रिसर्च पनि गरिनु भएको छ। उहाँले यो भन्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो उहाँको रिसर्चमा एभरेजमा 13-14 लाख एउटा जनप्रति वडा अध्यक्षदेखि लिएर सांसदसम्मको उहाँले गर्दाखेरि एभरेजमा 13-14 लाख चाहिँ खर्च अनिवार्य गर्नुपर्छ, नभए जितिन्न उहाँको एनालाइसिस। अब हाम्रो अब्जर्भेसनमा भन्ने हो भने एउटा वडा अध्यक्षले 50-60 लाख खर्च गरेको छ, अपोनेन्टले पनि 50-60 लाख खर्च गरेको छ। पछि त्यो एउटा वडा अध्यक्षले के भन्यो भने एउटा प्रोजेक्ट आयो भने होइन, अहिले के अरे यो वाटर लिफ्टिङको प्रोजेक्ट आइरहेको छ सर अरबको मेरो निम्ति के ठुलो कुरा हो सिधै भन्छ। अनि निर्वाचन प्रणाली अब डेमोक्रेसीको हामी कुरा गरिरहेको छौँ, माओवादीको आधार क्षेत्र पनि हो गोर्खा। त्यहाँ दिलबहादुर रम्तेल शहीद भएको ठाउँमा हामी उनकी आमासँग इन्टरभ्यू गरिरहँदाखेरि मैले नाम पनि भनेँ, दिलबहादुर रम्तेलको आमा उहाँ पनि वडा सदस्यमा चाहिँ उठ्नुभएको थियो होइन। अब त्यो क्षेत्रमा बराम भन्ने एउटा वडा अध्यक्ष जनजाति मूलकै होइन उठाइएको ती आमा पनि सरीमाया रन्तेल पनि उठ्नुभयो वडा सदस्यमा। तर त्यो सिङ्गो प्यानलै हाल्यो र उहाँले भन्नुभयो चुरोट बिँडी खुवाउँदा खुवाउँदा यताउति चियासा खुवाउँदाखेरि म जस्तो गरिबको पनि 40-50 हजार भयो भनेर भन्नुभयो। त्यसलाई निर्वाचन प्रणाली नै यो हाम्रो डेमोक्रेसीको यति महँगो भयो कि पिनका मान्छेहरू चाहिँ भनौँ न जननिर्वाचित भएर जान सक्ने स्थिति नै बनेन। त्यस कारणले गर्दा चाहिँ समस्या छ। अब यो पार्टिलाइजेसन कुरा उसले के रिचर्डले पनि भन्यो, मैले अब धेरै भन्ने सोचमा थिएँ। तर अब यो प्रश्न चिन्ह चाहिँ यो छ कि नेपाली राजनीति होइन दलतन्त्रले चलाएको हो वा दलहरूलाई दलाल तन्त्रले चलाएको, यो प्रश्न चाहिँ गम्भीर रूपमा उठेको छ ग्रामीण भेगहरूबाट। इभन काठमाडौँको डिससेटिस्फेक्सन यो छ। अर्को नेपालको प्रजातान्त्रिक राजनीतिक राजनीति होइन राजनीतिक वैचारिक सैद्धान्तिक र व्यवहारिक ज्ञानले चलाएको छ वा दिशाहीन दलतन्त्रहरूको झुन्ड वा समूहहरूले वा दलालहरूले होइन, यो प्रश्न उब्जिएको छ। सँगसँगै इन कन्क्लुजन जस्तै अवस्था बदल्न व्यवस्था बदल्नुपर्छ भनेर चाहिँ काङ्ग्रेस एमाले माओवादी सबै लाग्यो। अहिले उनीहरू यो पोजिसनमा छन् कि आफै भनिरहेका छन् व्यवस्था त बदल्यौँ तर जनताको अवस्था बदल्न सकेनौँ एउटा भर्सन छ, वा जनताको अवस्था बदल्छौँ अब भन्ने अर्को भर्सन। जनताको अवस्था बदल्नुपर्छ। अब सँगसँगै एउटा फोर्सेस आइरहेको छ फेरि राप्रपा भने नि भयो अवस्था बदल्न व्यवस्था बदल्नुपर्छ। त्यसकारण अब यो प्रजातन्त्र कतातिर जाँदैछ थाहा छैन। तर ग्रामीण भेगको मान्छे नि यो भनिरहेका छन् कि उनीहरू चाहिँ बालन जस्तो चाहियो, हर्क साम्पाङ जस्तो चाहियो, हामीलाई एक्सन ओरिएन्टेड चाहियो होइन, आफै ढुङ्गा बाटो गर्ने टाइपको, भ्रष्टाचार नगर्ने, सुशासन दिने, काम दिने, जनमुखी काम गर्ने होइन। उनीहरू त्योसँग तुलना गरेर चाहिँ अझै पनि नेपाली समाजमा नेतृत्वप्रतिको आशाका किरण देखेका छन्। तर यही पुरानो पार्टी यही प्रजातान्त्रिक प्रणालीमा चाहिँ उहाँको बिग क्वेसन छ। थ्याङ्क यू भेरी मच।
उहाँको यहाँलाई धन्यवाद।